Welcome back to the channel. My name is Brian Kingsbury. Today we're going to do another Brian Reads the News segment. This one is brought to us by Looper.com. It's titled, Whatever Happened to the Cast of News Radio? This one is by Will Fancer and it was updated July 19th, 2022. Let's get into it. The NBC sitcom News Radio premiered as a mid-season replacement in 1995. Comedian Dave Foley, best known at the time as a member of the Canadian sketch comedy troupe The Kids in the Hall, starred as Dave Nelson, the wet behind the ears news director of a fictional New York City AM radio station. Created by Paul Simms, the show quickly established a reputation for smart, modern-day screwball comedy, equally adept at one-liners, nerdy pop culture references, and pratfalls. Over the course of its 5 seasons, Dave and the news team at WNYX, which included Maury Tierney, Phil Hartman, and Stephen Root, dealt with everything from rat funerals to all-male a cappella groups to super karate monkey death cars. But not everything was so much fun. Despite a cult following, the show was never a ratings hit compared to juggernauts like Seinfeld, Friends, and Frasier. NBC moved the show around its schedule so much that Simms felt that they were being given a chance to develop an audience, and he told Rolling Stone magazine in a surprisingly candid 1997 interview. Co-star Candy Alexander left the show in the middle of the 4th season. Then tragedy struck when Phil Hartman was murdered before filming began on the 5th season. Hartman's friend and SNL castmate John Lovitz joined the cast in the 5th season, which would be the show's last. Since the end of the show in 1999, the cast of News Radio has gone on to great success in film, television, Broadway, and perhaps most notably, podcasting. Let's take a look at where they are today. First actor from the show we're going to talk about is Candy Alexander. Candy Alexander got her start as a dancer and choreographer, working with Whitney Houston, appearing in the video for Natalie Cole's 1988 cover of Pink Cadillac and making small appearances in films like CB4 and What's Love Got to Do with It. As an on-air reporter, Catherine Duke, Alexander delivered style, sophistication, and many well-earned slaps to the madcap newsroom, but after 3 seasons, she feared getting typecast and made the decision to leave the show during season 4. Quote, "I knew in order to open up my career, I had to leave, or that's all I would ever be given," she told Reuters in 2010. After News Radio, Alexander focused on more dramatic work, starting with the reoccurring role of Eric LaSalle's sister on ER and as a drug addict in David Simon's HBO miniseries The Corner. In 2002, she landed the longest-running role of her career thus far as a medical examiner, Alex Woods, on CSI Miami. Alexander appeared in over 140 episodes until leaving the show in 2009. A year later, in 2010, she reunited with Simon and HBO for the New Orleans set drama series Trem. Alexander earned an Emmy nomination for her work on Olivia Pope's mother on Scandal. In 2021, reunited with her old News Radio boss Paul Simms for an episode of the FX vampire series What We Do in the Shadows, proved that she still has the chops for comedy and drama. Next actor we're going to read about is Andy Dick. Comedian Andy Dick made a name for himself with a gangly physicality and anything-goes shamelessness on shows like The Ben Stiller Show and short-lived Get Smart remake. He brought those same qualities to the role of office klutz and well-meaning pest Matthew Brock on News Radio. Whether it was mispronouncing Buttafuoco in the worst possible way, captivating and then throwing up on James Caan, or turning out to be a pretty good dentist, Matthew had the energy of a breakout character but never overshadowed the ensemble. After the show ended, Dick had several years of high-profile roles in film and television, including his own MTV sketch show in 2002 and a supporting role on the ABC sitcom Less Than Perfect from 2002 to 2006. As the aughts moved into the 2010s, however, Dick's career ran aground thanks to a litany of legal and personal offenses, as well as numerous stints in drug and alcohol rehab facilities. Beyond his persistent struggles with drugs and alcohol, Dick has been accused of sexual misconduct on multiple occasions and was fired from 2 different films in 2017 as a result. In November of 2021, he was arrested on a domestic assault charges after an altercation with his live-in boyfriend. He continues to work in film and television, often in low-budget projects, and heavily promotes his Cameo page on social media. Next actor we're going to read about is Dave Foley. The secret to Dave Nelson, Foley's character on News Radio, is that he is not the straight man. A normal comedic structure might have Dave as the rational one contending with all the eccentrics flying around him, but the show only gives the appearance of that, taking advantage of Foley's boyish good looks and all-American, or all-Canadian rather, wholesomeness. But neither Dave, Foley, or Nelson is irrational or wholesome. Dave Nelson is as neurotic as anyone else working at WNYX, often driven to ruin by obsessions, be they coffee, a 1980s arcade game, or Bill's chewing. Likewise, Dave Foley has only rarely had a post-news radio role that has taken advantage of the comic insanity lurking under his buttoned-up surface. His 1997 film The Wrong Guy, about a man on the run for a crime he didn't commit and who no one is looking for, fizzled when it was released direct-to-video in the United States. In 1998, he entered the world of Disney with the lead role of Flick in Pixar's A Bug Life, but much of Foley's work has been playing weary, defeated authority figures, either in guest appearances on How I Met Your Mother and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, or more regular roles on Hot in Cleveland and Dr. Ken. Off-camera, Foley has become a successful stand-up comic and a candid, hilarious podcast guest. In 2010, he reunited with his Kids in the Hall castmates for the mini-series Death Comes to Town, and in 2022, they will ride again with a brand new season of Kids in the Hall episodes streaming on Amazon. The next actor we're going to read about is Phil Hartman. Phil Hartman was arguably the biggest star on News Radio. The veteran comedian was coming off of 8 years as a cast member on Saturday Night Live, where he played current presidents, future presidents, and every type of character in between. Hartman was a master impersonator, but also excelled at playing old-timey Hollywood types and raging egomaniacs, which made him a perfect fit for bombastic on-air reporter Bill McNeil, and more specifically for the show's rat-a-tat dialogue. Bill was the image of unchecked celebrity vanity. Any plotline, no matter how ridiculous, could be justified by his boundless ego, whether it was becoming a cane enthusiast or opening a piano lounge in the elevator. Tragedy struck on May 28, 1998, when Hartman's wife, Bryn, shot him to death in his sleep, then turned the gun on herself. When the show returned for a 5th season later that year, the premiere was an emotional tribute to both Hartman and Bill McNeil because he was such a prolific actor. Hartman kept appearing on screen for months after his death, most notably in the Joe Dante satire Small Soldiers and on a season 10 episode of The Simpsons as the voice of Troy McClure. Hartman was awarded a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2014. The ceremony was attended by his brother John and SNL colleagues John Lovitz, Kevin Nealon, and Lorraine Newman. In 2019, ABC News aired the 2-hour documentary The Last Days of Phil Hartman, chronicling the sad events that led to his final hours. More than 2 decades after his death, Hartman's life and death continue to fascinate. Up next, we're going to read about Vicki Lewis. Multi-hyphenate performer Vicki Lewis was in the Broadway revival of Damn Yankees before auditioning for the pilot episode of News Radio. Beknownst to her, director James Burrows had seen the production and liked her in it. Even if he hadn't, though, it's hard to imagine anyone else in the role of Dave's secretary Beth. Whether trying to coin a new phrase, explaining the subtleties of pretty versus cute, or mastering the art of negotiation, Beth would do literally anything but her actual job. After the show ended, Lewis returned to Broadway in the revival of Chicago in 2000 and 2001. Like Dave Foley, she also jumped into the Pixar train, voicing aquarium fish Deb and her sister Flo in 2003's Finding Nemo and 2016 Finding Dory. Lewis has become a prolific voice actor, lending her stage-trained pipes to Rugrats, Mission Hill, and Doc McStuffins, among others. On screen, she has had reoccurring roles on How I Met Your Mother and the Seinfeld reunion season of Curb Your Enthusiasm. In 2020, she took a villainous turn in the Disney Channel original movie Upside Down Magic. Lewis continues to split her time between stage and screen. In June of 2022, she's expected to appear in the off-Broadway musical adaptation of the Jodi Picoult novel Between the Lines. Up next, we're going to read about actor Jon Lovitz. Jon Lovitz had guest starred on News Radio twice in separate roles before joining the cast full-time in its 5th and final season in 1998. As eccentric broadcaster Max Lewis, Lovitz was a both literal and symbolic replacement for his friend and Saturday Night Live scene partner Phil Hartman. Like Hartman, Lovitz was a comedy veteran, having already spent 6 years on SNL, headlined his own animated series The Critic on ABC and Fox, and appeared in My Stepmother is an Alien, City Slickers 2, The Legend of Curly's Gold, and High School High in a rare lead role. After his one-season stint, Lovitz returned to the role he is arguably best suited for, a beloved comedy elder statesman, delighting talk show audiences and hosts, and popping up in guest roles and cameos for his famous friends. From 2009 to 2014, he owned a comedy club at Universal Studios Hollywood City Walk, and in 2007 he made headlines for a physical altercation with Andy Dick at the Laugh Factory in Los Angeles. The bad blood between the former co-stars stems from the death of Phil Hartman and comments Lovitz had made in the past about Dick's drug use. Though he believed that the two had made amends, an offensive remark from Dick brought things to a head and the two came to blows. Over the years, Lovitz has remained an active SNL alumnus. In 2020, he appeared on the episode as lawyer Alan Dershowitz, and in 2021 defended current cast member Chloe Fineman on Twitter after Fineman was attacked for her impersonation of Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. Up next, we're going to read about actor Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan was actually the third choice to play WNXY's resident handyman. Ray Romano was originally cast in the role but was let go during rehearsals for the first episode. Actor Greg Lee was brought in and filmed the pilot episode. His version of the character was also named Rick. After the pilot, Rogan was cast. At that time, he was mostly known as a Boston-based stand-up comic. The News Radio writers renamed the character Joe Garrelli and built his personality around the real-life Rogan. Joe is a self-styled tough guy, boorish on the outside but surprisingly sweet, loves outlandish conspiracy theories, and disdains the intellectual elite. After the show, Rogan returned to his stand-up and martial arts roots, becoming a longtime commentator and host for UFC, as well as host of the NBC gross-out reality show Fear Factor. He has had strong opinions on the art of stand-up comedy in general and plagiarism in particular, which led to an infamous incident in 2007 where Rogan confronted fellow comedian and alleged joke stealer Carlos Mencia on stage during a gig. In 2009, Rogan found his calling as a podcast host. The Joe Rogan Experience, in which Rogan hosts long interviews with celebrities, politicians, and other luminaries, is one of the most popular and controversial podcasts in history. Rogan has come under fire for his skeptical anti-science views on the COVID-19 vaccine. In January 2022, legendary rocker Neil Young issued an ultimatum to Spotify. Either Rogan goes or he does. Spotify sided with Rogan, and Young's music catalog was removed from the streaming service. Next actor we're going to read about is Stephen Root. Stage actor Stephen Root made an inauspicious film debut in 1988 as a DEA agent who is threatened while urinating by Paul Hogan in the sequel Crocodile Dundee 2. Root's career for the next several years followed suit with small but memorable roles in film and television shows such as Star Trek The Next Generation as a Klingon and LA Law not as a Klingon. He made his biggest splash with news radio playing Jimmy James, the Ted Turner-esque eccentric billionaire owner of WNXY, who, despite having an entire corporate empire, spends most of his days hanging around the radio station. Through Jimmy, the show was able to parody the wild hubris of 90s billionaires like Turner, Bill Gates, and Warren Buffett. Jimmy once launched a presidential campaign solely to meet women, but bet Bill McNeil in a poker game and was arrested on suspicion of being a hijacker D.B. Cooper. After news radio, Root made the move from working character actor to extremely working character actor, becoming a favorite collaborator of directors like Kevin Smith, Mike Judge, and the Coen brothers. He lent his voice to Judge's long-running Fox primetime cartoon King of the Hill and joined former castmate Vicki Lewis as a fish in Finding Nemo and Finding Dory. A consummate chameleon, Root is able to shift seamlessly between comedy and drama and is effortlessly believable in everything from Office Space to Get Out. In 2019, he was nominated for an Emmy for his work on the HBO Hitman dark comedy Barry. Next actor we're going to read about is Maury Tierney. One of the things that made news radio so special was the way that the show thumbed its nose at sitcom conventions and network dictates. Lisa Miller, the driven WNXY producer played by Maury Tierney, was intended as a love interest for Dave Foley's Dave Nelson. The cast recalled during an Uproxx oral history that NBC wanted a will they or won't they type of relationship for the two, a la Ross and Rachel on Friends. Instead, creator Paul Sims had the two sleep together in the second episode. The decision transformed the show. Lisa and Dave's relationship was no longer just about the flush of forbidden love, but about the difficulty of co-workers to successfully date, especially when one of them thinks she should have the other's job. Like Candy Alexander, Tierney moved into more dramatic territory after the end of news radio, playing Nurse Abby Lockhart for 10 seasons on the NBC medical drama ER. The role won her an Emmy in 2001. In 2009, she was cast opposite Peter Krause in NBC's remake of the Ron Howard film Parenthood. But a breast cancer diagnosis caused Tierney to withdraw from the show, the role that would be recast with former news radio guest star Lauren Graham. Tierney's cancer went into remission, and in 2010 she returned to acting with the play North Atlantic. In 2014 she took a lead role on the Showtime drama The Affair, for which she won her second Emmy. Since the end of The Affair in 2019, Tierney has stayed under the Showtime umbrella, starring in Your Honor with Bryan Cranston and American Rust with Jeff Daniels, both in 2021. All right, there you have it, another successful Brian Reads the News segment. This one is brought to us by Looper.com, titled Whatever Happened to the Cast of News Radio. Now you know, you can go check that out if you want to. If you like these sort of videos, there's more up on my channel. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that subscription button, ring that notification bell, and make these videos a regular part of your day. Thank you for watching this one to the very end. We'll talk to you on the next one. Bye.